Have you stood under the buzzing fluorescent lights of Woolies or Coles, staring at a bottle of olive oil or a block of cheddar, wondering why your weekly shop feels like an absolute mugging? You push a trolley past locked glass cabinets, scan your own groceries at an angry red kiosk that treats you like an unpaid suspect, and pay $90 for 3 bags of food that used to cost $50. You probably thought you were just going mad or getting cynical in your old age. You are not. The two supermarket giants controlling nearly 70% of Australia's grocery market have quietly decided that the everyday shopper who built their empire is no longer the priority. Not a rumour or internet gossip, but an undeniable shift laid bare in parliamentary inquiries, ACCC investigations, and corporate shareholder calls. I will show you the hidden mechanics of how supermarket shelves were re-engineered to extract maximum margin while delivering downgraded quality. You will find out how food on Australian shelves quietly lost its core ingredients, how fake discounts manipulate your brain into overpaying, and how surveillance turned the grocery run into a forensic audit. We will crack open the lab data, deceptive packaging games, and exact pricing tricks dragged into daylight. Stick around, because the most shocking revelation sitting at the top of this countdown exposes the executive strategy behind every missing cashier, inflated price tag, and locked razor blade in the country. Before naming the worst offenders, let us pull back the curtain on how a modern processed food product actually gets engineered. When an independent producer crafts a pasta sauce, chocolate block, or laundry detergent, they start with whole ingredients: fresh tomatoes, cold-pressed oils, pure cocoa butter, and active enzymes. But when an industrial conglomerate prepares a product for massive supermarket distribution, the formulation is handed over to food technologists whose only mandate is margin optimization. They strip out expensive primary solids and replace them with bulk fillers, emulsifiers, and modified starches. Think of it like buying a car where the manufacturer pulled out the precision steel gearbox and substituted molded nylon gears packed with heavy grease. On day one, it drives down the road, but the substance is hollowed out. In the food world, real dairy fats are swapped for palm oil derivatives and reconstituted milk solids. Whole spices and slow reductions are replaced by autolyzed yeast extracts, industrial flavor enhancers, and syrups that trick your tongue into tasting richness that physically does not exist in the jar. Then comes stealth reformulation. To avoid the backlash of an upfront price hike, a 600-gram packet quietly shrinks to 500 grams, while the water and thickener content creeps upward by 15%. The label stays identical, the graphic design shouts about natural goodness, but the nutrient density falls off a cliff. The supermarket duopoly actively encourages this race to the bottom because private label clones undercut branded versions while pocketing fatter margins for the retailer. When two corporate giants dictate what 80% of the country eats, quality stops being a competitive advantage and becomes an unnecessary production cost. The entire aisle transforms into a theatre of illusion where you pay premium prices for industrial starch and water. Let us start with the everyday items where the corporate switcheroo hit Australian shoppers hardest, counting down from sneaky corner cutting to massive systemic pricing deceptions. Wrong number 9 takes us straight to the household dairy chiller with Devondale Long Life Milk and Bega processed cheese blocks, owned by Saputo and Bega Cheese. These names used to represent Australian farmgate integrity and simple kitchen staples. Over recent seasons, consumers noticed a flatter, chalkier mouthfeel in standard full cream cartons and an increasingly plastic, rubbery texture in budget cheese slices that struggle to melt over toast. An analysis by independent consumer advocates revealed how processors have maximized permeate blending and skim milk powder reconstitution to standardize solids to the absolute bare legal minimum under Food Standards Australia-New Zealand codes. You pay nearly $2.50 per litre of milk or $12 for a family cheese block, believing you are buying pure dairy when you are actually purchasing a calculated slurry of bulk liquid permeate and water. Consumer food scientist Dr. Anthony Russell pointed out that industrial fractionation allows manufacturers to extract valuable milk proteins for overseas export, while leaving everyday shoppers with a nutritionally diluted fluid. As one buyer noted in a Choice Community review, the cheese feels like warm vinyl and browns without bubbling. You paid for a dairy farm and got a filtration plant. If you are already itching to check the nutrition panel on your fridge door, hit that subscribe button right now, because the corporate tricks only get rougher from here. Wrong number 8 hits the pantry with Continental and Maggi recipe bases and packet soups, marketed by Unilever and Nestlé as quick weeknight shortcuts for busy Aussie families. The little paper sachets carry an image of hearty herbs, simmered stock, and garden vegetables. Tear one open and smell it. A violent punch of synthetic hydrolyzed vegetable protein, onion powder, silicon dioxide anti-caking agent, and enough sodium to preserve a timber deck. Food laboratory breakdowns show that active vegetables and spices in many 60-gram sachets make up less than 7% of total weight, with refined maize starch, maltodextrin, and iodized salt making up the bulk. At $2.80 a packet, you are paying over $45 a kilo for colored table salt and modified cornstarch that leaves a gritty coating across your palate. Choice awarded recipe-based sachets a spot in their consumer expose for hiding massive sodium loads behind heart-smart marketing imagery. A community reviewer described the beef casserole mix as brown wallpaper paste, tasting exclusively of MSG and salt. You expected Grandma's slow cooker, but they sold you an envelope of seasoned drywall filler. Wrong number 7 brings us to the bathroom, with Rexona and Lynx aerosol deodorants manufactured by Unilever. Generations of Australians grew up trusting the green tick logo and the promise of 48-hour sweat protection. Walk down the personal care aisle at Chemist Warehouse or Coles, grab a standard 250ml can, and look at the ingredient order. The primary active component listed first is butane and propane propellant gas, followed by volatile cyclic silicons and a trace dusting of aluminium chlorohydrate. In recent lab testing by consumer groups, the antiperspirant active payload represented a fraction of canister volume, meaning up to 70% of what you discharge is industrial hydrocarbon gas. At $8.50 a can, you are paying over $34 per litre for aerosol fuel that leaves a suffocating white cloud on your tiles and dries out underarm skin without stopping afternoon odour. Dermatologist Dr. Sarah Higgins noted that high alcohol and propellant concentrations often trigger contact dermatitis, while delivering minimal perspiration barrier compared to traditional roll-ons. Long-time users frequently report that 2 quick bursts empty half the tin within a fortnight. You thought you bought personal hygiene, but paid $8 to vent compressed gas into your hallway. Wrong number 6 moves directly to the laundry with Omo and Radiant laundry powders, owned by Unilever and Henkel. Promoted across Australian television as stain-destroying heavyweights that keep work shirts immaculate, these iconic cardboard boxes have undergone continuous weight reduction and chemical restructuring. Independent laundry laboratory testing by Choice consistently exposes how major brand powders pack their formulations with inert sodium sulfate bulking agents and sodium carbonate fillers that add scoop volume without cleaning your garments. When you wash a standard load, these insolubles fail to dissolve completely in cold water cycles, depositing a stiff microcrust on cotton fibers and wearing down washing machine pump seals over time. At $24 for a 4-kilo box, you are paying $6 a kilo for a product whose primary washing action is driven by cheap mineral salts that irritate sensitive skin. Appliance repair technician Mark Dwyer revealed that crusty buildup inside modern front loaders is overwhelmingly caused by undissolved filler clays and sulfates from premium powder brands. A frustrated shopper wrote that dark towels came out feeling like sandpaper coated in chalk dust. You paid top dollar for clean laundry, and they delivered a box of scented masonry dust. Wrong number 5 lands on the sweet aisle with Cadbury Dairy Milk Chocolate, owned by Mondelez International. For nearly a century, Cadbury was the gold standard of Australian confectionery, celebrated for its iconic glass and a half of pure dairy milk promise. But since corporate manufacturing restructuring and recipe adjustments, the beloved purple block has undergone unmistakable sensory degradation. Food scientists have noted the steady reduction of authentic cocoa butter solids in favour of emulsifiers like soy lecithin and polyglycerol polyracinylate, combined with increased sugar ratios to maintain bulk weight. Take a bite today and feel the difference. Instead of a smooth, clean cocoa melt that dissolves across your tongue, the chocolate leaves a waxy, greasy film that clings to the roof of your mouth with a throat-burning, sugary finish. Woolworths and Coles now regularly sticker these blocks at $6.50 for a shrunken 180-gram bar, meaning consumers pay upwards of $36 a kilo for a product legally hovering near confectionery compound. Culinary reviewer James Mitchell pointed out that the iconic snap and clean melt have vanished, replaced by an oily fudge texture designed to survive warmer warehouse logistics. The purple wrapper still promises heritage, but the spreadsheet inside delivered palm oil-grade mouthfeel. Wrong number 4 tackles the freezer section with Bird's Eye and McCain frozen fish fillets and battered seafood, owned by Simplot and McCain Foods. Positioned as wholesome protein solutions for quick family dinners, these boxes feature glossy pictures of deep-sea trawlers and flaky wild fillets. A close inspection of the mandatory nutritional panels filed under Australian labelling laws reveals that actual fish content in many crumbed and battered products hovers between 45 and 55%. The remaining half of your purchase consists of water, bleached wheat flour, canola oil, modified potato starch, and sodium tripolyphosphate to force processed fish pieces to retain artificial water weight during freezing. In the oven, this engineered slurry releases pockets of steam, resulting in a soggy crust and a grey, sponge-like fish texture that tastes watery and rubbery. At $11 for a 400-gram box, you are shelling out $27.50 a kilo for bulk batter and industrial moisture binders. Marine food researcher Dr. Elena Vance highlighted that consumers are effectively paying premium seafood rates for deep-fried water retention agents. One mother posted on a consumer forum that cutting open a fish finger revealed transparent mush surrounded by greasy dough. You budgeted for omega-3s and got charged for a sponge soaked in batter. Wrong number 3 hits the condiment rack with Heinz and fountain tomato sauce, owned by Kraft Heinz and Cerebos. Australian barbecue culture was practically founded on the glass bottle of rich, tangy red sauce smothering a sausage sizzle. Yet modern commercial reformulations have turned these bottles into concentrated sugar delivery systems. Independent food analysis shows that standard supermarket tomato sauce contains upwards of 25 to 28% refined cane sugar, combined with tomato paste reconstituted from imported concentrates, acetic acid, and modified thickeners. Squeeze it onto a plate. Instead of deep, earthy richness from slow-cooked whole tomatoes, you get an ultra-glossy, gelatinous red paste that smells sharp with industrial vinegar and tastes overwhelmingly like candy syrup. At $5.50 for a standard squeeze bottle at Woolies, you are paying over $10 a litre for spiced liquid sugar. Nutritionist Karen Taylor noted that 2 tablespoons of typical supermarket sauce pack more sugar than a sweet biscuit, completely masking the lack of real tomato solids. A disappointed customer noted that the sauce no longer tastes of garden produce, only high fructose sweetness that separates into watery liquid around the edges of the plate. You wanted a classic barbecue staple, but they handed you red syrup with a tomato logo. Wrong number 2 exposes the duopoly's own backyard with Woolworths Essentials and Coles Simply House brands. These private label budget lines were presented to the Australian public as the honest, inflation-busting refuge from greedy multinational price gouging. But behind plain white packaging sits an aggressive sourcing strategy that quietly hollowed out local supply chains. ACCC inquiries revealed how major supermarkets used immense market power to squeeze local farmers and food manufacturers onto razor-thin contracts, forcing them to strip down recipe specifications or be delisted entirely. Look at ingredients in home-brand canned fruit, canned beans, or frozen vegetables. The percentage of imported ingredients from offshore industrial farms often exceeds 80%, while the drained weight of actual solid food inside the tin has quietly decreased in favour of salted canning water. You buy an Essentials pasta sauce for $2, only to find it is 70% water and thickener $14.22, offering zero nutritional depth and watering down your dinner into an insipid mess. Agricultural economist Peter Hall noted that private labels allow the duopoly to capture vertical margins while giving consumers zero long-term quality guarantees. A shopper remarked that opening a budget can of diced tomatoes looked like pink tap water with 3 floating seeds. The low price felt like a rescue, but it was just a cheaper ticket to lower standards. Wrong number 1 delivers the most egregious deception on the entire Australian shelf: the infamous was now and down pricing tags by Woolworths and Coles. For decades, Australians trusted bright yellow and red shelf tags as official guarantees of a genuine bargain, building entire household shopping lists around advertised specials. That trust shattered completely when the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission launched landmark federal court legal actions against both Woolworths and Coles. The ACCC alleged that the supermarket giants engaged in systemic, misleading conduct across hundreds of everyday household staples. The playbook was brutally simple: raise the regular price of a product by 20 to 50% for a brief period of a few weeks, and then slap a massive "was now" or "prices dropped" ticket on the shelf, claiming a dramatic discount, when the newly advertised special price was actually higher than or identical to the original regular price before the spike. Over 3,000 products were caught up in filings, ranging from Kellogg's cereals and Nescafe coffee to Lurpak butter, Palmolive dish soap, and Arnott's biscuits. Consumers who rushed to the aisle believing they were saving money were literally being funneled into pre-calculated margin traps. Consumer advocate groups labeled the practice psychological price manipulation at an industrial scale, taking advantage of vulnerable households struggling through a national cost of living crisis. A federal court submission laid out how algorithmic pricing systems automated these artificial spikes across entire categories without a single human consideration for fair trading. You pushed your trolley down the aisle, trusting the yellow sign was a helping hand, but it was a digital trap designed to pick your pocket with a discount banner. Right. Here comes the part that made watching this far worth it. We have waded through filler clays, waterlogged fillets, and fake discount tags. So now let us look at genuine Australian alternatives that actually deliver the quality your hard-earned dollars are paying for. These brands prove that ethical production, unadulterated ingredients, and genuine value still exist on local shelves if you know where to look. Our first standout recommendation begins with the everyday hero of the budget aisle, Aldi. Specially selected and chausseur lines. Aldi entered the Australian market with a simple European discount model, but their private label strategy took a completely different path from the local duopoly. Instead of watering down products to capture short-term margins, Aldi partners directly with dedicated contract manufacturers under strict specification sheets that routinely ban artificial colours, hydrogenated oils, and unnecessary bulking thickeners. Take their chausseur chocolate blocks, crafted using authentic European recipes with high percentages of pure cocoa butter rather than cheap vegetable fats and emulsifier cocktails. Snap off a row of chausseur hazelnut chocolate and you immediately hear a crisp, clean break, followed by a velvety melt that coats your mouth with deep cocoa and roasted nut oils rather than a waxy film. At roughly $3.50 for a generous 200-gram block, you pay under $18 a kilo, which is nearly half the price of degraded mainstream brands. Independent blind taste tests conducted by consumer panels consistently place chausseur ahead of legacy supermarket staples for texture and cocoa richness. The downside is bringing your own shopping bags and navigating middle aisle chaos, but for budget-conscious families looking for clean sweets and pantry basics, it is the ultimate inflation shield. Moving into pantry staples, Cobram Estate extra virgin olive oil sets the national gold standard for everyday cooking oils. Founded in northern Victoria along the banks of the Murray River, Cobram Estate revolutionised the local edible oil industry by crushing olives within hours of harvesting from their own groves. Unlike imported Mediterranean blends that sit in metal shipping containers for months, Cobram Estate delivers authentic extra virgin olive oil tested for ultra-low free fatty acid levels and certified by the Australian Olive Association. Pour it into a shallow dish and notice the vibrant greenish gold clarity, fresh grassy aroma, and peppery antioxidant kick at the back of your throat that signifies potent polyphenol content. A standard 750 milliliter bottle retails between $16 and $19, translating to about $23 a litre. While that sounds pricier than industrial refined seed oils, you only need a single tablespoon to deliver immense flavour and high temperature stability, working out to less than 35 cents per generous cooking serve. Food science testing consistently shows that Cobram Estate retains higher antioxidant stability during standard domestic cooking compared to imported supermarket blends. If you want genuine heart health and pure, unrefined, cold-pressed fats in your kitchen, this bottle belongs next to your stove every single day. For the condiment and sauce shelf, Beerenberg Family Farm brings genuine culinary craft straight out of the Adelaide Hills. Operating from their historic farm in Harndorf since the 19th century, Beerenberg rejects commercial shortcuts like artificial thickeners, bulk corn syrups, and imported concentrates. Their Australian tomato sauce is slow-cooked in traditional open pans using Australian-grown tomatoes, whole onions, and a gentle blend of authentic spices and vinegar. Squeeze a dollop onto a burger and you immediately see the difference. A deep crimson, textured reduction that holds its shape on the bun rather than weeping watery liquid across the plate, bursting with the natural sweetness and acidity of real simmered fruit. A 300 milliliter bottle costs around $5.50, breaking down to roughly $18 a litre. It is certainly a couple of dollars dearer than sugary supermarket red paste, but because the flavour profile is dense and authentic rather than diluted with water and starch, a small splash goes twice as far. Culinary experts consistently praise Beerenberg for maintaining strict farm-to-bottle traceability across their entire range. It is the perfect everyday upgrade for anyone who refuses to put synthetic high-fructose syrup on their family's barbecue plate. When it comes to the dairy fridge, Jalna pot-set yogurt represents the benchmark of authentic, unadulterated fermented dairy. Based in Melbourne, Jalna adheres strictly to the traditional pot-set method, meaning pure whole milk and active probiotic cultures are poured directly into the individual tub and allowed to ferment naturally in a temperature-controlled setting without subsequent blending, stabilizers, or gelatin additives. Open a pot and you will find a firm, glossy surface with a delicate layer of natural whey on top. Scoop a spoonful and feel the luxurious, thick texture that melts into a clean, tart finish without gummy, artificial aftertaste. A 1 kilo tub retails for around $7.50, delivering massive value at 75 cents per generous 100-gram serving of active, gut-friendly nutrition. Gut health researchers and accredited dietitians regularly recommend Jalna for its robust colony count of live beneficial bacteria, free from thickener 1442 and milk powders common in commercial yogurt tubs. It requires keeping flat in your fridge to prevent whey from separating too quickly, but for absolute dairy purity and clean protein, it is completely unmatched on Australian supermarket shelves. Stepping into the premium artisan tier, Meredith Dairy Marinated Goat Cheese shows what happens when uncompromising regional farming meets world-class gastronomy. Produced on a family-owned, sustainable farm in Meredith, Victoria, this soft cheese is crafted from fresh goat milk collected daily, formed into creamy curd balls, and submerged in an exquisite blend of Australian extra virgin olive oil, garlic, and fresh herbs. Spread it across warm, crusty sourdough and experience an ultra-creamy, velvety texture that dissolves with rich, tangy depth, balanced by fragrant herb oil you can pour directly over salads. A 320-gram glass jar sells for around $14 to $16 at Harris Farm, IGA, and premium delis. While undeniably an investment, every single component of the jar is edible, turning simple pantry toast or roasted vegetables into a restaurant-quality meal for less than $3 a portion. Food critics and dairy awards across the country have repeatedly honoured Meredith Dairy as an Australian culinary triumph. It is the ultimate treat for discerning food lovers who understand that genuine artisanal craft is worth every single cent. To make sure you never get taken for a ride down the supermarket aisle again, here are 6 bulletproof rules to screenshot before your next grocery run. First, always calculate the unit price per 100 grams or per milliliter rather than looking at the big dollar figure on the shelf tag. That little font in the corner is the only number that exposes deceptive packet downsizing and fake specials. Second, check the first 3 listed ingredients on any packaged food. If water, refined sugar, maltodextrin, or thickener numbers appear before the core whole food, put the container back on the shelf because you are paying for cheap industrial filler. Third, look for the Australian country of origin bar chart. Genuine local production shows at least 90% Australian ingredients, whereas the ambiguous Made in Australia from imported ingredients label usually means cheap overseas slurry packaged in a local warehouse. Fourth, treat bright yellow was now tags with healthy skepticism. Unless you have tracked the regular price over several weeks, assume the discount is a temporary promotional illusion. Fifth, when buying dairy or oils, look for pot-set or cold-pressed extra virgin certifications, rather than generic blended or light claims that mask heavy processing. Sixth, explore independent greengrocers, local butchers and farmers markets, where fresh whole produce is consistently cheaper per kilo and higher in quality than the duopoly's plastic-wrapped trays. The modern grocery game was engineered around a simple corporate assumption that everyday shoppers are too busy, exhausted, and distracted to notice when recipes get hollowed out and prices get manipulated. Once you shift your mindset from brand loyalty to ingredient literacy, the supermarket loses its power to exploit your household budget. You stop being a passive consumer, falling for colourful cardboard marketing, and become an informed buyer who votes with every single dollar. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this deep dive. If this investigation gave you the tools to see through the supermarket duopoly's tricks, share this video with your family, friends, and workmates, because everyone in Australia is trying to survive this cost of living squeeze. Jump down into the comments right now and tell me which of these downgraded brands is sitting in your pantry today, and what is your absolute favorite local alternative. Next week, we are walking straight into the big pharmacy chains to expose the dirt-cheap generic medications that big brands charge you 5 times more for. So hit subscribe to catch the receipts first. Shop smart, look after your wallet, and do not let them mug you at the checkout.